Hey everybody, welcome to another conversation in our Why Jazz Worship video. And I'm delighted to introduce to you, and many of you watching this will know this person already, Bob Maccini. He's a great friend of mine, and he is the closest person I know to being what formerly in earlier times where it was called a Renaissance man. Bob is an American Baptist pastor. He has a PhD in New Testament Greek. He is an editor of textbooks for seminaries and other people. He is a lights-out lead trumpet player in our big band and in many other bands. He's a jazz arranger, and last but not least, along with being an awesome husband, grandfather, and all of the other wonderful roles that he plays, he is sometimes a soccer referee. So if you can find anybody closer to a Renaissance man than that, I'd like to see it try. So it's a great honor to invite Bob now to the microphone for this interview. So thanks for joining me, Bob.
Good morning. It's good to be here. Another word for Renaissance man is glutton for punishment. So.
Yeah, that's, well, I understand that.
But thanks, man. It's great to be here. This is really
great.
good.
Well, we've been, there are several interviews in this, and I've been sort of starting in the beginning by asking people to put together a little bit of their personal faith journey. And I know that the Prodigals, that you started the Prodigals, which is a jazz worship ensemble that Bob started a number of years ago now, when you and Rebecca were in the UCC Church in Henniker.
That's right.
And I just wondered if you could just tell us a little bit about how your faith journey, your love of jazz, and your sense of ministry kind of came together in forming that?
Yeah. Well, I had done my bachelor's degree in music and studied jazz arranging with Hal Crook, a great Berkeley guy, and so had been using music all along in my faith journey, in my music, in my church ministries. But when we came to Henniker, I think it sort of all came together because they had a great music program there, really strong music program for a small church. And the idea came along to try this, just a jazz service one day. And of course, Rebecca was all over it. She loved the idea. And we had a number of good musicians in the church that wanted to give it a shot. And so, it was the first time I actually organized formal jazz band worship in the church, even though I had been using music throughout my Christian life and in my ministry. And people just loved it. They absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. By the time I got a chance to play with you all in the church in Henniker, it had become a thing.
That's right.
And on Jazz Worship Sundays, there would be more people than on other Sundays. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, the deacons keep count, and they would say how the congregation would just swell by about 30 or 40%. We would publicize it around the town and put up posters and so forth, and it brought in a lot of people who would otherwise never set foot in the place.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when eventually, as part of his journey to the north, his annual journey to the north, when Delphio Marsalis became involved, and you actually managed to get him to come to Sunday morning worship and play and eventually talk.
Yeah.
That really was the cherry.
Absolutely. I mean, getting Delphio on board, he would come up to play on Saturday nights at New England College and do benefits for the church, but kind of twisting his arm to get him to stay over and get up early on Sunday morning and come play with us. But he was happy to do it, and he's done it, as you know, many times, and you've done it with him. And that was the icing on the cake to have somebody of that stature.
Some of the most fun
Oh,
that probably both of us have ever had musically. Have
yes,
been in
and
those-
hair raising.
yes, in those experiences.
Delphio's a free spirit.
Yes,
for sure.
The soul of spontaneity.
Yes, jazz. That's what jazz is all about, man.
Exactly.
Buckle up. Here we go. Yeah.
Well, I know you to be a really energetic and disciplined and also faith-filled guy. I've always, in our conversations and our friendship, you live in a very intentional way what it means to be a Christian, I think both you and I might not always live in ways that to everybody would look like it's intentional Christianity, but that's, I think, what intentional Christianity is,
Yeah.
Or intentional faith is being yourself and figuring out what it means to be yourself and to be the best Christian you can be. And I wondered if the music, and especially your talent for arranging and putting together musicians and music and ideas about how to arrange jazz worship music, it sort of brings together your personal qualities of faith and energy and commitment and all that.
Yeah, the fun thing, as you know, about any kind of music, or especially church music, it's the people that are involved, and that's been my experience, is working with the Prodigals, and then it's been a floating cast, but it's a kind of the usual suspects, and the fun part of it is bringing Christian community together around this joyful music that jazz is, because a lot of times church music can be, you know, a little, how shall we say, less than energetic.
Right.
I don't know, but jazz does that. So I mean, to me, that's what the Holy Spirit is about: is that sense of freedom, the sense of joy, the passion, all brought together with the Spirit building community. And of course, the beauty of jazz is the individual expression within community that you don't get when, well, you get it, but when music is all notated and done by the numbers, there's a certain constriction that's not there with jazz, when it's like, you take it, you know, and you see what the Spirit's going to do.
Yeah.
So that, to me, has been the special fun of doing jazz as opposed to other kinds of church music, all of which I enjoy and embrace. But that's been the special part, is the freedom of it.
Freedom is a great word.
Yeah.
I think certainly for jazz and the way in which spiritually freedom is an incredible part of the spiritual life at its best.
Yeah, I mean, in Galatians, Paul, for freedom,
Yeah.
Christ has set you free.
Right.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
That's jazz is freedom, and that's one good definition of it.
Yeah. We have been very blessed in so many ways, but among other ways by our friendship with Richard Slater, who is a conference minister, and so through our connection with Richard, we've actually had a chance to play sometimes for the annual conference gathering, and I just have loved those, because I just love to look out at the sort of sea of people, many of whom have never had this experience before of having jazz worship and the freedom and spontaneity and excitement of it. Those are highlights for me.
Yeah, and Richard often says, as soon as we'd finish that, everybody would be saying, "Can you come back next year? Do it again next year." So we've done that on more than one occasion. Yeah, that's been great.
Really fun.
Yep.
Really fun. So many fun things. And speaking of memories, I also I think we all have our own memories of all the times in our life that are special for us, and I have a memory of the first time we played your arrangement for wait for it, let all mortal flesh keep silence, which is not a piece that anybody else that I know but you would think to arrange in the jazz idiom. But the first time we ever rehearsed it was in my back room with the Prodigals, and Kate Madison was singing us, the late Kate Madison, a beautiful, beautiful voice, a beautiful spirit, who died last year from COVID in the Northwest where they moved. Just a wonderful spirit and a beautiful person. But she was singing, and that soaring ending that has for the band and for the singer, I just still get goosebumps thinking about it. That's sort of a memory that I carry within me, that is complete with so many emotions. I wondered if you had your own versions of those kind of moments which have been special for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of memorable moments. Well, one that I have, I mean, going back to Delphio, the first time we got him in on the Sunday morning jazz thing, and I had arranged one of the tunes we're going to do, which is "What a Wonderful World," and I mean, because that's a signature piece for him now. He's, after Louis Armstrong, I think most identified with that piece is Delphio, and I thought, oh boy, you know, is he going to want to do this? Is he going to like doing this? And he was eager to play the chart. And I remember when we finished it, there was just this. You could have heard a pin drop in that sanctuary, just this silence after Delphio played that arrangement, and that just the way he does it, the soul he puts into it. And I remember the cadenza at the end, you know, and then just silence. You could feel it. It was
talk about let all mortal flesh keep silence.
That was a memorable moment.
That's a wonderful example too, because we think of jazz as spirited and free and spontaneous and kind of raucous, but also jazz, like all music, can bring people to a stop.
Oh yeah,
just bring people to, there's nothing else in the world in that moment but that sense of the divine mysterium.
Yeah, I mean, Amelia had the same effect when she did our arrangement of Come Sunday.
Yeah.
Same effect, just this awesome silence when it was done.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, if we were going to do all the ones that you've arranged, you know, we'd have to have a boxed album.
Well, the list has grown over.
Oh my God.
It's been 10, 11 years, I think, now since we've been doing this. So it gets it's expanded.
Yeah, a lot of. I mean, there are 4 interviews in this video, and there are 4 different approaches, and all wonderful, and that's also so jazz-like.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that is characterized your work is often taking hymns or spirituals or liturgical music or settings, and doing a jazz arrangement. And I wondered if that, I know that's intentional to kind of do that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's lots of ways to go at this. As many ways as there are people who are doing it. My approach has been to stay within the hymn gospel music tradition and work with that, try to respect it, knowing when things probably aren't a good choice for jazz arrangements. That's part of it, knowing.
We talked about that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I come to the garden, remember, it's just like, just leave me alone. Do not arrange me for jazz, just leave. But working with ones that, like, I mean, the pieces we're going to do for this jazz sanctuary, 2 of them, Down by the Riverside, and I Want Jesus to Walk With Me, squarely out of the gospel music tradition, but also using things that are, quote, secular, but are fully in sync in content with the gospel message. So, for example, we're doing Stephen Foster's Hard Times, which talks about solidarity with the poor and suffering with the poor. Now, that's pure gospel. So even though it's technically a secular song, same thing with What a Wonderful World. I mean, talking about celebrating the beauty of God's creation, the beauty of the world, that's fully gospel. And so I folded that in, as you know, with This Is My Father's World, So that works out well. And the last one we're doing, who knows what tomorrow may bring. I mean, again, Jesus, don't worry about tomorrow.
Right.
It's got enough trouble.
Right.
And that great line in the thing, say your prayers to the man upstairs, and in the meantime, let's just swing. I mean, that's a fully gospel message.
Absolutely. It's what I learned in seminary. It was called realized eschatology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like, let's just swing.
Yeah,
If only they told me that at the time, I would have.
Yeah. I mean, I can see Jesus going, don't worry about tomorrow, just swing. And that's a perfect, that line to me sums up church jazz. Say your prayers to the man upstairs, and in the meantime, let's just swing. Yeah. So that's been my approach, is to work with the hymnal or gospel music or so-called secular music that has good gospel content, and that's worked well for me, I think.
That's great. I have one final question. I did warn Bob about this, but it's definitely a left field question that nobody in the world, probably other than Bob and myself, might see coming. But that's I know that you are a devotee. I think that's the right word, certainly, and of your beloved Soren Kierkegaard.
Yes. Yeah.
I as a pastoral counselor, I also would see him as pretty much the father of modern psychology.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of his also. So if Soren Kierkegaard were around now, how do you think he'd feel about jazz worship?
Oh, wow. Well, I don't know if I'm actually a Kierkegaard addict. I don't know if I'm a devotee. Well, that's an interesting question. He was raised in a very austere Christian home, but when he went off to university at age 17 and, as a young man in college, whether it was Copenhagen in the 1800s or now, his experience broadened, and he loved the arts. He was a rabid fan of opera. He loved the opera. He was always in the theater. So, he loved music. I mean, jazz didn't exist then, but Kierkegaard was a guy whose his beliefs were very orthodox, but the way he lived them out, that you were talking earlier, how you live out your Christianity, was very unorthodox. Right. And with his focus on the individual, I could see him just loving the idea of worship music where the individual gets to be who they are. Right. Because that was his whole focus. Exactly. Be who God created you to be. Yeah. So doing that within community, I like to think Kierkegaard would have loved church jazz, and I wouldn't want to be under his disdain. So I think I'm going to believe he would have loved it and would approve.
I don't know why, but just this minute it came to me sort of a fantasy of having Kierkegaard and Delphio involved in the same project.
Oh my! Now that would be too much force of personality for the planet to take. That would be unbelievable.
It might be a harmonic convergence or something that might come about. Well, this has been a great conversation, and that we really thank you so much. And I think for those of you watching this, you are really going to find Bob's arrangements of the 5 tunes that we just talked about to be a real treat, and prepare to be surprised as well as delighted. There are twists and turns in these arrangements that you won't see coming, and that's jazz. So thank you all very much.
Great. Thank you, Tim.